And welcome back to the Power Accountability League. I'm your pal Dan L. This is my Chan L, and I might be related to Cal L. And in the previous video, I talked about objective and subjective reality. I might have kind of gone all over the map. I might have kind of rambled and off into different areas. I'm going to try and do a little better job of focusing in this video and talk about how objective and subjective reality came into existence for the human race and why. How it came into existence was evolution, which, interestingly enough, is also going to tie into the why it came into existence. So, objective reality, as I mentioned in the previous video, is logical reality, mathematical reality. The universe, as far as we can tell, and I think this seems to be accurate, the universe we live in is a Euclidean universe. That's a fancy way of saying it's a mathematical universe. And most of the universe, from what I observe, and I think from what I've read of other people observing, it's not complex mathematics. Yes, there's, the simple geometry, simple algebra, and then of course even the simplest of mathematics, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Um, those seems to be the basis for the universe we live in. That is, they can explain most of the observable universe for the human race. Relative now, I get there's a lot of scientists where I say no. If you want to understand the universe, you have to understand extremely complex mathematics, and I don't really want to get into that debate. I mean, regardless of whether it's rudimentary mathematics or extremely complex mathematics, hopefully most people who have critical thinking skills that are fairly developed can agree that we live in a logical mathematical, and those are synonyms in my book, logic and mathematics, um, or certainly they're closely related. Maybe not exact synonyms, but the point is, I think a lot of people who have who have good critical thinking skills and people who do examine their own life and examine the big picture that they inhabit, the universe, I think we can all agree that it seems to be a mathematical universe. And by the way, I'm gonna wander off the page here for a second. I understand how for a lot of people, because I'm in this category, a lot of people are bored by mathematics. A lot of people are put off by mathematics. They're like, "Oh, I'm not really that talented as a mathematician. I'm not." And so I can understand how that puts people off. That's why human beings tend to wander. Like, I really love music. I love poetry. Music, of course, musical lyrics obviously are very poetic. I love, humanity loves the romance of existence. And I get that. I get that. I mean, there's literal um, romance, meaning emotional bonding romance. And then there's just the romantic notion of the world we live in. Happily ever after. That's the kind of a romantic notion of creating your own happily ever after. And when I say that's double anyway, that's a double. When I say romantic, it fits both definitions here. It fits the emotional love romance, and it also fits the romantically artistic vision of how a life can be led. But anyway, so to get back to objective and subjective reality, it seems as we evolved and we got smarter, we started to appreciate the fact that we lived inside of an objective reality, a logical mathematical reality. But because it's boring and it's off-putting, and also because, quite frankly, subjective reality can be more fun. That's a reality where we're creating reality for ourselves. And it seems that's also tied to evolution. That is, the smarter we got, the more we spent time creating a false reality, self-deception. We lied to ourselves, individually, about our families, about our communities, about the planet we live on, about the universe we live in. It became more comfortable, more pleasurable to lie to ourselves. Be like, there's no reason that someone who flies a jumbo jet shouldn't be smoking marijuana. Really? I mean, right before takeoff? Well, yeah, he shouldn't be drinking alcohol, but it's okay to get high on marijuana. Now, you know why someone might say that? Because maybe they have a preference for marijuana. Maybe they have to lie to themselves and say there's no detrimental effect. I've heard people say things like marijuana cures cancer, marijuana makes people smarter. George Carlin once said, it made me more creative, and there might be some truth to that. I'm not going to debate that right now. But near the end, in the latter phases of the life of George Carlin, he also said, there's diminishing returns with marijuana. And that was him admitting, you know, the more you do it, the less you get in return for doing it. So there, but the point is, I think it was a sign of maturity. I think it was a sign of him accepting objective reality and being more of a grown up, being more of a mature person, and saying the cure for my emotional pain isn't marijuana. But anyway, and I realize I've already lost about 2/3, maybe 75% of you by even bringing up the subject of marijuana, because that marijuana is a religion in the USA, North America, much of the Western world, maybe much of the both the Eastern, maybe the whole planet is in love with it. I'm just not in love with chemical escape from reality. And the marijuana, alcohol, heroin, cocaine, ecstasy, methamphetamines. These are just some examples. And then again, I mentioned belief systems like religion. These are all a way to escape reality. I've never been compelled to escape reality, but I've never felt the need to escape reality. I like reality. I like this planet. I get very disappointed with the human race because I think we underachieve on a massive level, on a level that's so mind bending that it hurts to think about it. The level of underachievement for us. And you're like, well, wait a minute, what about the pyramids and curing polio and harnessing electricity and building rocket ships to the moon? I mean, can't you? And those things are wonderful. Those things are amazing accomplishments. And that's part of what makes me sad sometimes, because when you can accomplish things like I just mentioned, and at the same time you don't know how to control your population, which is definitely true of the human race, that is hard to reconcile. That is, we're smart enough to send people to other celestial bodies, but we're not smart enough to procreate in a non-suicidal way. And what does that mean exactly? That means we're not smart enough not to breed ourselves into extinction. That is, if you squeeze enough people on this planet, eventually the economic and the ecological systems collapse. That's because there's something called finite resources, and a lot of people on the right deny that, and there are people on the left who also deny that in a different way. They deny that irresponsible breeding is a bad idea when you bring morality into it. But at the same time, this is the hypocrisy of the left and the right. Right and left. We're going to talk about concepts like right and left too. But the right and left both become hypocrites, and they're in denial about things like overpopulation. Like I said, the right just a lot of people on the right just don't believe in the concept of overpopulation. And the people on the left don't understand that if you do believe in overpopulation, and the left by and large does believe in overpopulation, then guess what? You're going to have to employ a certain type of morality to control that. And the morality works like this: only procreate in a way that you can take care of your own offspring. If you're going to procreate, you have to be self-reliant at the same time. And if you procreate and you're not self-reliant, that's a bad idea, and you have to shame people like that. And the left really hates the concept of shame unless it serves their political narrative. And again, the right does the same thing. But anyway, we're going to talk about left and right in a future video. But again, returning, and I realize I easily get off subject. I apologize for that. Returning to objective subjective reality, as we evolve, we're smart enough to figure out that objective reality is a thing. It is that we do live in an observable universe. Observable universe. Um, and at the same time, because there's some harsh realities behind the observable universe, we've created a subjective reality. And that's to escape the objective reality. And that implies the smarter you get, in my opinion, that implies the smarter you get, the weaker you get. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. The more humanity evolves, the weaker we get. The weaker we get physically, the weaker we get emotionally, the weaker we get. I'm going to use the word spiritually, even though again I've made some comments on religion. I think spirituality can tap into the supernatural element of the universe without tapping into the religions created by the human race. So that is, I think there is a supernatural element. I've already stated this. There's a supernatural element to the universe that isn't adequately explained by the religions created by humanity. Our religions tend to explain things which I think are just more fantasy based rather than supernaturally based. But anyway, so again, so to sum it up, objective reality and subjective reality um, became an awareness for us as we evolved, as we became smarter. But also, that's how it happened because we became intellectually complex enough to understand concepts like objective and subjective reality. Why we have abandoned objective reality for subjective reality is because we get weaker. We've gotten weaker, and I hate to say this, but there is evidence that we're starting to regress into a new dark ages. And I don't know if that's a sign of de-evolution. It's possible. Um, it worries me. It bothers me that it's possible that we are starting to de-evolve. We don't. I don't know if we have a lot of examples of that outside of Homo sapiens. That is, have we witnessed other creatures on this planet which evolved to a certain point and then started de-evolving? I would have to talk to some incredibly accomplished biologists to get more information on that. But for humanity, we do seem to be entering a new dark ages where we deny the the fundamental nature of the universe we live in. And again, that goes back to subjective reality. We have decided that we're not strong enough, we're not brave enough, we're not intelligent enough to handle what this universe throws at us. So anyway, that was today's little video. Again, I know I tend to go onto tangents, but that's because when you talk about one thing, they tend to be related to other things. So because things are interrelated, you have to kind of touch on those things. So I appreciate you stopping by today and look forward to seeing you again in a future video. Please leave your comments down below. And I'm also going to put a link down below to some sort of funding account. I haven't decided what sort of account I want to create because the Power Accountability League hopefully will become something that has a lot of memberships, that has a lot of members, and I want a growing membership in the Power Accountability League because I want to do exactly what that implies. I want people in positions of power to be held accountable for not doing what they were hired to do. And what they were hired to do is leave the world better than they found it, in my opinion. So when people become the CEO of a corporation, when people become the president of the United States, or they become members of Congress, or they sit on the Supreme Court or whatever, all those people, in my opinion, have an obligation to leave the world better than they found it. And in the West, for the last 50 years, they've been doing the opposite of that. For at least the last 50 years, people in powerful leadership positions have been leaving office or leaving their position as a corporate CEO. They've been leaving those positions where company and their is weaker and has a more darker future, not a brighter future, but it has a more pessimistic future if you're in the private sector. If you're in the public sector, the people in that sector has just left the West bankrupt. The left is financially, morally, spiritually bankrupt, and that's been a 50-year journey. And now if you're saying, well, it's the responsibility of voters, there's a yes. I'm not. That's absolutely most of the problem. The people who vote have to stop voting for people who promise them a free lunch. Because if there's one thing I can promise you in the universe you and I live in, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So anyway, that was today's video. Thanks for stopping by. You have a great day. Look forward to seeing you back here in the future. Bye-bye.